Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Van Helsing, the 2004 movie starring Hugh Jackman, who was always a win, Kate Beckinsale, who was always a win, and funnily enough, starred in Underworld the year before this movie. It also has the dude who plays Igor in this movie, like Frankenstein's Igor. He is played by the asshole friend from The Mummy, and he plays the type. It also has the narrator guy from 300, and let me tell you, he does not play a Spartan character here by any means, but I like him, I like his voice, so it's fun. And it has, a few other people in it, but those are the main ones, including, so they have the dude who plays Dracula in this, and I've never seen him in anything else. I don't recall seeing him in anything else before or after this, but he does a fantastic job, so good for him. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start off the furry, I already mentioned Dracula, Frankenstein. So, this movie is set in the, 1870s, so, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Frankenstein, that sort of era of supernatural fighting. And in this era, you might recall that oftentimes when there's vampires, there's also werewolves. And the werewolves in this movie are absolute peak design. Just absolute pinnacle tippy-top werewolf design, both in their transformation sequences as well as the overall design. Like the size, the hair, the fur, the muscles, the face, the ears, their movement, everything is peak werewolf design. I really wish that more movies had just been like, hey, can we use your werewolf, your assets, the CGI assets, can we just use those in our movies to or just copy those to make our werewolves? No, we're not gonna ask. We're not gonna ask them that. We're just gonna make our shitty Harry Potter werewolf design. Great. So yeah, peak werewolf design in this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you are missing out sorely on peak werewolf design. I'm just saying, this is the movie if you like werewolves. Perfect design. Anywho, moving on to the good, the bad. So Hugh Jackman always win, and so this movie, as you might have guessed, he's a monster hunter. He goes around and takes out bad things. And what's fun is that it's kind of played as a Batman. He's sort of with the gadgets and always coming through and picking the right gadget to make up for the fact that he is fighting supernatural creatures as just himself. So he always has the right gadget that he's pulling out of his kind of bulky coat. But it's also kind of played like the James Bond movies from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or maybe early aughts, but how there's even a sequence where he's in this, where he goes to get supplies from, and it's like the Q sequences from James Bond, where there's a bunch of people, it's the Q lab, they're trying out all these new technology things, and Q is showing him all the cool new gadgets that he's going to have, and talking about their things, and then, Bond, or in this case Van Helsing, is yeah, you're coming with me to, use some of this stuff and get this stuff going. What? So, it's such a fun sequence, and just in general, I really like the tone of this movie. It's serious when they're, taking these things out, but it's not, dreary and sad and overly dark. Even night scenes in this movie have adequate lighting. Take note, Amazon Studios. So, this movie, I think, has really good pacing. So, there are some movies where, you get a third of the way through or 2/3 of the way through and you're this could have been the end of this movie. And now you're just tacking on this whole other section that you didn't need. In this movie, I did not feel this way. It's 2 hours and 11 minutes. I feel like if they had padded the runtime, they didn't have camera getting hit cuts where it's just super, super fast, cut. But if they had padded some of the, each scene just a little bit more, they probably could have bumped out this movie to end it at the 2/3 mark, or, end it at the hour and a half, 80 minutes mark, and been a really good movie. But they didn't. I think they did a really good job of editing and tightening up and having a solid story with good pacing through what could have been the climax of a different movie. But in this movie, it wasn't, and they did a good job of keeping up the tension and the pacing and the increase of things that are happening, and I really enjoyed that. I liked the entirety of this movie. I basically have nothing negative to say about this movie. I like the costume design, I like the weapons design, I like the pacing, I like the CGI, which is especially impressive given that this is 2004. And yeah, there were some stylistic choices that they made, I think, primarily for budget, but it did also was done in a stylistic, not just we're broke, or not so much the broke, because I think this was a high budget movie, but just because of just how ridiculously expensive CGI and just limitations of CGI back in 2004. Because for example, there's Dracula, and in this Dracula he transforms into a winged creature, right? But we get introduced to Dracula pretty early on, but the camera does like a thing where like Dracula transforms into his winged thing, and we only see the shadow of it. Like we're not facing Dracula as he does it. And yes, part of it is for budget, but also it's done in such a way that it's clearly pumping up just how crazy powerful and evil and whatever else like this Dracula is. So yes, there's budgetary and capability concerns that probably led to those choices, but they were implemented artistically in a way that supported the narrative and building of tension and that type of thing. So I really liked that. I also really liked the Dracula wives, how they transformed. I really like how their costumes were integrated into that transformation sequence, and I thought that it worked beautifully. I think that again, peak werewolf design, and I really enjoyed for a flying Dracula style vampire and Dracula, vampires and Dracula. I think that they did this absolutely phenomenally. I really enjoyed how they transformed, the changes to them, their costume, their faces, their bodies, and everything else. Like I thought that it was absolutely phenomenally well done, and I think it's something that if you're going to have a winged vampire in your movie, this is the exact way to do it for both the Dracula and the vampire wives. So I really enjoyed that. Yeah, this whole movie was just fantastic. Every one of the things and people and actors and everything else that were involved were fantastic. And, there wasn't any bad moments or bad CGI where I was just like, this takes me out of the movie. So, and even in the fight sequences, they didn't have that terrible thing where it's just so many rapid cuts to just cut around the fact that they're using like stunt doubles or like trying to avoid things. They did not have that problem in this one. I liked the fight sequences for what they were, and yeah, I'd say that probably the only like weird, I'm not even going to go into the weird bit because it was just such a minor thing that I think that you can view it one way and it would be fine. So no complaints about this movie. 2 thumbs way up. Love the heck out of this movie. I think that everyone should watch this if they like vampires or werewolves or any of that type of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde era of creature things. So yeah, definitely give it a watch. That's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.